Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system.
We have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path.
What is it that would make it so that history would look at this crisis as the great opportunity for reset?
The Great Reset is a welcome recognition that this human tragedy must be a wake-up call. It is imperative that we reimagine, rebuild, redesign, reinvigorate and rebalance our world.
The Great Reset is just the latest instalment of the grand agenda to completely reorder global society by the end of the 21st century. Prior to the Great Reset, for instance, the United Nations Agenda 21 was adopted by 178 governments in Rio in 1992, and it took the form of a comprehensive plan of action to be taken globally, nationally and locally by organisations of the United Nations system, governments and major groups in every area in which humans impact on the environment. Global, unelected special interests have a vision of what your future is going to look like, and these international networks of power ideally want you to blindly accept every aspect of your life being controlled by experts, with this system known as technocracy, or rule by experts, i.e. technicians. Before we delve deeper, a little context on the organisation behind the reset is needed. It is the brainchild of the World Economic Forum at Davos, led by Professor Klaus Schwab, the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, with other global organisations such as the International Monetary Fund and the United Nations pushing this initiative. Back in 2016, the World Economic Forum featured a ridiculous article written by Ida Oken that described a system akin to neo-feudalism. Welcome to the year 2030. I don't own anything. I don't own a car. I don't own a house. I don't own any appliances or any clothes. A system where you, as an individual, do not own anything is a system where everything you have can be taken away from you at a drop of a hat. It essentially describes a neo-feudal or neo-slavery system. In feudal systems in medieval Europe, the serfs, who were the lowest class of people in a hierarchical system, were slaves in many ways. Serfs were bound to land and the lords who owned them, and had little to no rights. A serf could not marry, move somewhere else, or change occupation without permission from their lord. So, keep all this in mind when you hear about how supposedly great this reset is going to be. Yet what exactly is the Great Reset? As Schwab explained in a World Economic Forum article in June of 2020, to achieve a better outcome, the world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of our societies and economies, from education to social contracts and working conditions. Every country, from the United States to China, must participate, and every industry, from oil and gas to tech, must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism. There are many reasons to pursue a great reset, but the most urgent is COVID-19. In other words, Schwab is calling for the complete reordering of life on this planet. From the chaos generated by the response of governments to COVID-19, Schwab wants to impose his and the elite networks of power intertwined in the World Economic Forum version of order. As he writes, the COVID-19 crisis is affecting every facet of people's lives in every corner of the world. But tragedy need not be its only legacy. On the contrary, the pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine and reset our world to create a healthier, more equitable and more prosperous future. Considering that the Great Reset is being pushed on the world in an opportunistic way in response to COVID-19, it is important to highlight that the World Economic Forum was one of the main organisers of Event 201. This event took place in October 2019, and it simulated or war-gamed a scenario where a coronavirus pandemic that began in bats engulfed the world. It is also important to note how connected Schwab and the World Economic Forum are to key individuals and organisations that help shape the world. Schwab has known Henry Kissinger, one of the most globally connected individuals on the planet, for 5 decades, for instance. In a 2017 interview at Davos, Schwab gushed over Kissinger.
I'm delighted to see you, Dr. Kissinger, on the screen. And for me, it's a very moving moment because actually I met Dr. Kissinger the first time exactly 50 years ago at Harvard.
In the same interview, when talking about a speech made by the Chinese President Xi Jinping, Kissinger talks about globalization and the construction of a new international order.
I think that President Xi's speech was of fundamental significance. It laid out a concept for globalization and some specific challenges and roads to a solution. But to me, the most important aspect was that it was an assertion by China of participating in the construction of an international order. One of the key problems of our period is that the international order with which we were familiar is disintegrating in some respects, and that new elements from Asia and the developing world are entering it. What President Xi has done is to put forward a concept of international order in the economic field that will have to be the subject of conversation and the substance of the creation of an evolving system.
Kissinger has been a long-term member of an organisation that has represented elite networks of power for around 100 years. An organisation with a fascinating and intriguing history, namely the Council on Foreign Relations. Carroll Quigley, who was a professor of history at Georgetown University for many years, and who also taught at Harvard and Princeton, wrote a book called Tragedy and Hope in 1966. In the book, he described a future system that is remarkably similar to our system today, and he noted in his book that he'd been given access to the private records and secret papers of the Council on Foreign Relations. In relation to the potential of a future feudal-like system, Quigley wrote that, in addition to these pragmatic goals, the powers of financial capitalism had another far-reaching aim, nothing less than to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole. This system was to be controlled in a feudalist fashion by the central banks of the world acting in concert, by secret agreements arrived at in frequent private meetings and conferences. The apex of the system was to be the Bank for International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland, a private bank owned and controlled by the world's central banks, which were themselves private corporations. Each central bank in the hands of men like Montagu Norman of the Bank of England, Benjamin Strong of the New York Federal Reserve Bank, and others sought to dominate its government by its ability to control treasury loans, to manipulate foreign exchanges, to influence the level of economic activity in the country, and to influence cooperative politicians by subsequent economic rewards in the business world.